DahReply's AI Podcast, your trusted take on the latest AI news. Episode 8, North Carolina's Robot Doctors, the End of Bedside Care.
Imagine you're lying in a hospital bed in North Carolina. The lights overhead are that sterile, unmistakable fluorescent white. You hear the door glide open, and you look over it expecting to see a doctor.
Right, the classic doctor in a white coat with a chart.
Exactly. But instead, a sleek black robot on wheels just silently rolls into the room. And it has no face.
Just a massive screen.
Yeah, 24-inch flat screen mounted right at eye level. And on that screen is a live video feed of a real physician sitting miles away looking right at you.
It is such an arresting image, you know? We are actually looking at this 12-second video of one of these telepresence robots navigating a brightly lit hospital corridor.
And it went completely viral.
Yeah, it sparked a massive, highly polarized debate online recently. People are just losing their minds over it.
Well, the reactions are split right down the middle. I mean, on one side, you have the critics watching this rolling screen and calling it literally the definition of a dystopian future.
Yeah, the ultimate loss of the human touch in medical care.
Right. They argue it's not a technological triumph at all. To them, it's this cold, calculated maneuver by healthcare conglomerates, right, to stretch underpaid staff and cut out travel time.
Just squeezing a few more drops of efficiency out of a totally exhausted system.
Exactly. But then you look at the supporters, and that group actually includes several licensed physicians.
Which makes sense when you look at the ground truth. They watch that exact same video and see a desperately needed lifeline for a systemic crisis.
Because doctors are burning out, right?
Burning out at unprecedented rates, and rural or underserved hospitals simply cannot attract specialized doctors right now.
So from a strictly utilitarian perspective, a teleconsultation, even delivered via a screen on wheels, is just vastly superior to a patient deteriorating.
Exactly. Just because no specialist was available, it bridges a geographical gap that is actively costing lives.
Right. Now, if you are listening to this right now specifically, if you're a business owner or professional operating in Malaysia, this North Carolina hospital room is actually highly relevant to you.
It sounds totally disconnected, but it really isn't.
Yeah, because we aren't here to debate healthcare policy. Really? The mission of this deep dive into the latest industry sources is to unpack a massive convergence happening right now.
The convergence between physical automation and software AI agents.
Exactly. We are going to explore how work is fundamentally changing and what that actually means for your business operations, your supply chains, and your creative workflows in the Malaysian market.
And that hospital robot is the perfect starting point, because it represents the physical boundary of where technology is currently operating.
See, I have to push back there. I look at that hospital video and I really don't see true disruption. To me, this just looks like, well, Zoom on a Roomba.
Zoom on a Roomba. That is a great way to put it.
Right. It's just a remote-controlled screen. The human doctor is still doing all the heavy lifting, the diagnosing, the charting, the critical thinking.
Yeah, they're just driving a chassis from another zip code.
Exactly. True robotics, at least to me, implies the system is actually doing the thinking.
And that distinction right there is crucial. The hospital robot is, like you said, merely a telepresence tool, a communication bridge.
Okay, so where does the actual disruption happen?
It happens when the AI stops being a passive channel and takes over the cognitive load entirely. So if doctors are currently using tech just to automate their physical presence, traditional high-touch trades are doing something way crazier.
Like what?
They are completely handing over their front and back offices to software that operates without any human prompting at all.
Okay, let's look at how that's playing out in sales and operations. Because the data outlines how AI is transforming blue-collar, service-based industries.
Yeah, the sources use pool contractors as a primary example, which is just fascinating.
There is this platform mentioned called TroDVX. It integrates an AI text bot that is specifically engineered to conquer one metric.
Speed to lead.
Speed to lead, yes. Because in the contracting world, whether you build pools or install HVAC systems, the first business to respond to an inquiry statistically wins the job.
Right, and think about the traditional model. You have a busy contractor checking their email at the end of a long day and manually replying.
Which is way too late.
Exactly. So this bot intercepts the inquiry the exact millisecond it arrives, and it instantly texts the prospect.
But it's not just sending one of those automated, we will get back to you messages, right?
No, not at all. It actually initiates a dynamic conversation. It collects budget requirements, project locations, all of that.
And then it cross-references the prospect's answers with the company's qualification criteria.
Yeah, and if it's a match, it just accesses the manager's calendar and books the consultation directly.
That is wild. The entire top of the sales funnel is handled entirely in the background.
And it doesn't stop there. The back office operations are getting the exact same treatment through these AI activity log summaries.
Because managing multiple construction crews involves a really chaotic flow of information.
Oh, it's a nightmare. You have foremen texting updates with spelling errors, supply houses emailing delivery confirmations, local inspectors logging reports.
So what does the AI do with all that?
It parses all of this unstructured data. It understands, for example, that a delayed concrete delivery mentioned in a random email correlates with a foreman's text about pushing back the rebar installation.
Oh, wow. So it connects the dots.
Yeah, and it synthesizes all of that into a concise 3-sentence summary for the operations manager.
So it highlights the cascading delay before it even becomes an expensive problem.
Exactly. It's proactive management.
Okay, so ProDBX is handling inbound traffic brilliantly. But then there is this other system detailed in the research called the OpenClaw playbook.
Oh, OpenClaw. This is a fully self-directed, hyper-targeted lead generation engine that just operates out in the wild.
It really is a masterclass in combining disparate data sets. The workflow is just staggering.
Walk us through it.
So the OpenClaw bot scans satellite imagery to locate homes valued between like $500,000 and $1.2 million.
Specifically looking for empty backyards, right?
Yes, but it doesn't just look for green grass. It actually analyzes the property to ensure a pool can truly be built there.
The underlying mechanics of how it pulls that off are crazy. It pulls public parcel data to calculate property line setbacks.
It can do that automatically?
Yeah, completely. It analyzes elevation maps to determine the slope of the yard, ensuring it isn't too steep for standard excavation.
That is incredible.
It even calculates the solar angle based on the home's roof line, just to ensure the proposed pool area isn't sitting in perpetual shadow.
Okay, and once it verifies the yard is viable, it pulls public ownership records to identify the homeowner.
Right.
Then, the AI generates a full 3D rendered luxury pool and digitally composites it into a cinematic video of that person's actual backyard.
And calculates the exact build cost for that specific zip code.
Yeah, and it estimates the projected property value lift, prints a personalized physical postcard featuring before and after photos of their own home, adds a custom QR code, and drops it in the physical mail.
And the craziest part? No human ever pressed a single button.
Okay, hold on. Let's think about a Malaysian SME for a second.
Sure.
So much of the business culture in, say, Kuala Lumpur or Penang is built on face-to-face interaction and deep trust. Right?
Very relationship heavy, yes.
Right. So if I'm a homeowner in Penang and I receive a hyper-customized video of my backyard that a machine generated by evaluating my property from space, I mean, I might not buy a pool. I might call the police.
That is a very fair point.
Doesn't this level of hyper-automation completely shatter customer trust before the relationship even begins?
You are hitting on a very real psychological threshold there. In relationship-heavy markets, encountering a machine that knows too much about you triggers the uncanny valley of sales. I mean, it feels invasive.
Extremely invasive.
However, consumer expectations for personalization are evolving rapidly. A generic flyer stuffed in a mailbox is increasingly viewed as just nuisance spam.
True. People just throw those straight in the trash.
Exactly. Showing a homeowner a highly accurate visualization of their property's potential, provided the data is legally sourced, of course shifts the interaction. It moves from a cold pitch to delivering immediate, tangible value.
Okay, I see what you mean.
The strategy isn't to deceive the customer into thinking a human made the render. It's to use the software to provide a bespoke consultation before even asking for a moment of their time.
All right, but generating a postcard with text and pulling satellite data is one thing. How is the OpenClaw system actually rendering a custom 3D pool?
That's the real magic.
Because operating complex creative software requires an understanding of three-dimensional space, which feels like a massive leap from just text-based AI.
It is a massive leap, and it requires moving AI out of the chat window and embedding it directly into the software environment.
The research highlights a breakthrough called Blender MCP, right?
Yes, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It functions as a two-way communication bridge connecting Claude AI directly to Blender.
And Blender is a notoriously complex professional 3D modeling suite. So how does Claude actually see what is happening inside Blender?
Well, it doesn't have eyeballs looking at a monitor.
Right, so how does it know where things are?
It reads the underlying data structure. When you look at a 3D scene in Blender, you see a visual representation of shapes and lighting.
Okay.
But the AI reads a JSON file or a data tree that mathematically describes every vertex, every texture, and every light source in that scene.
So it's literally looking at the math.
Exactly. So when you type a command in plain English, the AI parses your intent, cross-references it with the mathematical state of the 3D scene, and instantly writes and executes Python code to manipulate those values.
The practical application of this is just wild. The documentation gives an example of a user designing a track shoe.
Yeah, I love this example.
The prompt given to the AI is entirely conceptual. The user just says, I go to Slippery Rock University and I have a track meet next week. Help me design a shoe that represents my competitive spirit.
Notice the complete absence of technical instructions in that prompt.
Right, there's absolutely no mention of polygons or texture nodes.
None.
The AI just analyzes the user's pre-existing library of 3D shoe models, understands the metadata classifying a track shoe, and searches the web to find the green and white color palette of Slippery Rock University.
And then the user selects the laces on the 3D model and simply types, change this to a metallic gold.
And it just does it. The AI instantly writes the Python script to adjust the material properties, tweaking the roughness and the metallic value, and applies it perfectly.
The creative execution is impressive, but honestly, the logistical application is arguably more valuable.
How so?
Anyone working in 3D animation knows that file organization is notoriously tedious. The documentation details a scenario where a user imports a massive, chaotic file directory where all the assets are named in Chinese.
Oh, the classic problem where an object is just inexplicably named CubeTown007.
Yes. So the user asks the AI to organize the file. It starts by translating the Chinese asset names to English, but it goes much further.
It actually looks at the shapes, right?
Yeah, it analyzes the spatial coordinates of the objects. It calculates that the object named CubeTart007 has a bounding box shaped like a string.
Okay.
And it sees that it's physically positioned directly over the coordinates of the object identified as the tongue.
So based on that spatial relationship, it autonomously renames the file to laces.
Precisely.
It's acting like a digital sous chef.
That's a great analogy.
The human is the head chef, right? Designing the menu and tasting the final dish. But the AI sous chef spends hours chopping the onions, prepping the stations, and doing all the tedious labor.
Yes. It can even build a perfect 3-point studio lighting rig just from a text prompt.
You just ask for it, and it sets a warm key light at 45 degrees and a cool fill light on the opposite side.
Yep. Or you can ask it to apply an HDRI.
Wait, what exactly is an HDRI in this context?
High dynamic range imaging. It's essentially a 360-degree panoramic photograph of a real-world location, like a sunset over a beach or an industrial warehouse.
Okay, so how does that help with lighting?
When applied in 3D software, it wraps around the digital scene and uses the pixels in the photograph to cast realistic, mathematically accurate light and reflections onto your 3D objects.
Wow, so asking an AI to configure an HDRI environment map saves a designer from having to manually calculate light paths and reflection balances.
Exactly. It saves hours of work.
But, I mean, this shift causes a lot of anxiety for professionals. If the AI can write the Python code to build the lighting rig and organize the files, why spend years learning the software interface?
The data suggests a powerful reframe for that. Your software expertise becomes leverage instead of labor.
Leverage instead of labor.
Yeah, because if you don't possess the domain knowledge to know what an HDRI environment map is or why a warm key light needs a cool fill light, you cannot instruct the AI to build it.
You still need the taste and the strategy.
Absolutely.
Which begs the question, if you are running a creative agency in Malaysia right now, how does this change your hiring?
It changes everything.
You aren't looking for the junior designer with the fastest raw-clicking speed anymore. You have to hire for conceptual direction and artistic taste.
Knowing the AI is functioning as the hands doing the clicking.
Right. So once those digital workflows, the lead generation, the 3D rendering, the file organization are perfected and happen instantly, the ultimate bottleneck for any business becomes physical fulfillment.
Yes. You can sell 1,000 pools in an hour with OpenClaw, but you still have to dig the holes and deliver the materials.
Which naturally forces AI out of the computer and into the physical warehouse.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the hardware.
Digital agents are mastering software, and now we are putting these advanced AI brains into physical machines.
We are moving far beyond the remote-controlled hospital screen we started with.
Comes further.
The research highlights a Costco warehouse in South Jersey that is now operating driverless forklifts. These machines are loading and unloading heavy pallets from trailers without a human cab operator.
And a busy distribution center is an incredibly dynamic environment. You have pallets constantly changing location, debris on the floor, human workers walking around.
How do they not hit anyone?
These forklifts use sensor fusion. They combine optical cameras with spatial awareness software to navigate that chaos safely.
So if you operate a logistics hub near Port Klang or a major distribution center in Johor, the implication is that the movement of goods within a facility is becoming a solved problem.
It really is. But the forklift is practical. The research also details a machine that feels like it belongs in a sci-fi movie.
The Unitree H1 humanoid robot. The specifications on this machine are just staggering.
Unbelievable, really.
Originally, it held the world record for humanoid running at 3.3 meters per second. But recently, Unitree took a modified version, stripping off the head and hands to bring the weight down to 62 kilograms, and it clocked a peak sprint of 10 meters per second.
To contextualize that speed, Usain Bolt's human world record for the 100-meter dash averages out to 10.44 meters per second.
That is terrifying. We are looking at a bipedal machine running at near Olympic sprinter speeds.
Yep.
How does a two-legged machine even stay upright while sprinting?
It relies on a combination of advanced sensors and a training method called reinforcement learning.
Okay, break that down for me.
So the H1 uses 3D LiDAR. That works by shooting out millions of laser pulses and measuring how long they take to bounce back.
Like echolocation, but with light.
Exactly. It uses that to build a real-time 360-degree point cloud of its environment, and it fuses that data with depth cameras.
But what about the balance? Running is basically controlled falling.
The balance comes from simulation. Engineers don't build 1,000 physical robots and let them fall over in a lab, right? That would be way too expensive.
Right.
They build a digital twin in a physics engine, speed up the simulation, and let the AI attempt to walk and run millions of times. It learns from every single fall.
Oh, so it gets all its mistakes out of the way in the matrix.
Precisely. Once the AI perfects its balance policy in the matrix, that software brain is transferred directly into the physical metal robot.
And the economics of this are what truly shift the paradigm.
This is the most important part.
Historically, research-grade humanoids, like those early models from Boston Dynamics, cost hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars.
And they weren't even commercially available.
Right. But the base model of the Unitree H1 costs around $90,000. It weighs 47 kilograms and features 4 degrees of freedom in its arms.
Now, a 4-degree of freedom arm is essentially a basic crane. You know, it can move up, down, left, and right.
Okay.
But if a business needs more complex manipulation, the upgraded H12 model features 7 degrees of freedom.
How does that add?
That mimics the complex geometry of a human shoulder, elbow, and wrist. It allows the robot to reach around obstacles and perform really intricate tasks.
And how much is that one?
That upgraded model is priced around $128,000.
I have to ask, what is the actual business application here? I mean, is an SME in Kuala Lumpur going to buy a $90,000 sprinting robot?
Probably not.
It feels like an incredible engineering flex, but totally impractical for a standard warehouse.
Well, the Sprint itself is absolutely an engineering flex. It is a public demonstration of the high-torque actuators and the dynamic balance algorithms.
Okay, so showing off.
Basically. The vital takeaway isn't that a logistics company needs a robot that can run 10 meters per second.
What is the takeaway, then?
The takeaway is the total cost collapse of the underlying hardware. Actuators, LiDAR sensors, and the AI brains required to navigate chaotic physical spaces have suddenly become affordable. If a machine can sprint without falling, it can easily walk down an aisle in a warehouse.
Or carry a 50-pound box, or navigate the uneven terrain of a construction site.
Exactly. The cost of automating physical labor is plummeting just as rapidly as the cost of cognitive automation.
Wow. So let's bring this all together for you. We have mapped a technological trajectory today that is accelerating across every domain.
The gap between experimental technology and standard business practice is essentially vanishing.
We began with a doctor telecommuting into a North Carolina hospital room using a basic physical avatar.
We then examined software engines capable of calculating property slopes from satellite data to sell custom pools.
And we saw how AI can read the data tree of 3D modeling software to act as a digital sous chef and execute complex creative workflows.
And finally, we explored how the physical hardware required to house these AI brains is dropping in price and skyrocketing in capability, moving from digital organization straight to physical fulfillment.
So for a business operating in Malaysia today, the immediate action item isn't purchasing a humanoid robot. The critical realization is that AI integration is no longer a futuristic luxury.
It is the baseline for survival. Whether it is utilizing an AI text bot to instantly qualify leads or deploying an AI operator in your design department, your competitors are actively transforming their labor costs into operational leverage.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder. If we project this trajectory forward, if your competitors can utilize software to handle the entire pipeline, from satellite-targeted lead generation to custom 3D design, to eventually fulfilling those orders with driverless forklifts and bipedal robots, what is left?
That is the real question.
Exactly. What is the core, irreplaceable human value your business is actually selling? Are your customers simply paying you for the mechanical completion of a task? Or are they paying you for relationship, empathy, and trust?
Let's hope it's the latter.
Because if it's the latter, you have to ask yourself, when that black screen on wheels inevitably rolls through your door, will your customers see a convenient solution? Or will they realize the human connection they were paying for is already gone?